Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board.
Good evening, Ms. Lambert.
Karen Lambert, Reedy Church District. As you know, 3 meetings ago, I spoke informing you of an event at the Meadow Event Park that I felt might violate the zoning proffers or permitted uses. At the time, you informed me that Mr. Fincham would look into it and contact me with his findings. At the next meeting, I inquired again, and Mr. Fincham and Mr. Underwood told me that they would have something for me at the next meeting. Last night at the Reedy Church Community Meeting, I again inquired about the situation and was told I was sent an email that afternoon. After asking Mr. Culley, Mr. Parton, and Mr. Underwood, I was informed a formal zoning determination had been made and an event would be allowed there. There is a finding that the event falls under educational programming as permitted under the fairground definition. While I may not be thrilled with this finding, I am more dismayed at the process. I thought the board might take a few minutes to discuss their opinions in an open public forum, to invite public input or possibly inform me of discussions so that I might add my own concerns or views. Instead, a formal finding was emailed to me with my only recourse being an appeal to the BZA with a $600 check within 30 days. I have watched this board discuss other items for much longer periods and in the public forum, but I have also watched other matters such as this dispatched in such a way that no input is allowed. I have had the only legal recourse of disturbing noise taken away by the change in the noise ordinance. So now, besides the fireworks and concerts, etc., motorized noise emanating from an educational program is allowed. Even though Saturday is listed as a driving school, Sunday is not. It is listed as an open test and tune, open to all, and up to 30 runs per driver. The finding states races would violate the zoning, but I guess if you call it a tune and lube, even though there are 2 sets of 3 heats and no instructions, it's not a race, it's educational and permissible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
My name's George Bean. I'm in the Mattaponi district. I hadn't planned to talk about this until I talked to one of the supervisors about it, but I figure at this point I'll throw in my 10 cents worth. I am part of an organization called Richmond Amateur Telecommunications Society. They are an amateur radio group that does great things for emergency preparedness in the county, in the area of Richmond, and within essentially an 80-mile radius their services are provided. Every year they have an event called the Frost Fest, which is a meeting of amateur radio operators. It has been held at RIR, and they have a flea market. They have meetings to discuss information, education, etc. And for the last 5 years, I've said that that place has basically all the appeal of an upholstered sewer. We are meeting in the 3 smaller buildings out there. The larger building is always taken over by the gun show. So I've been trying to get them to come out to Caroline County and go to the fairgrounds and use that wonderful facility. I've been to an event down in Charlotte, very similar facility, much nicer place to be. And I talked to some of the people 2 weeks ago about this, week and a half ago, and they said everything was fine until we found out that we're going to have to buy peddler's licenses from the county and pay taxes to the county, and the math gets messed up. So apparently the county has made it less than inviting for small organizations to come out and use the fairgrounds. And as a resident of Caroline County, I find that really disappointing. As an amateur radio operator, I find it even more disappointing. So at some point, I want to sit down with one of you and discuss this and figure out what we can do in the future to maybe make this right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Is there anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is Jim Hackett, and I'm state chairman for the Virginia Hunting Dog Alliance. As you're probably aware, that there is a big push in the General Assembly presently trying to lift the ban on hunting for Sunday. They want to make it legal. This is an attack against our way of life and our culture. For I, too, am a rural citizen. Though I live in Prince George County, I live and experience the same things you experience here in Caroline County. The process that's being followed is not exactly typical. I will say that this bill was put in the last hour of the last day it could have been put in, and it ironically hit the floor of business the first opportunity on the following Wednesday. It's been fast-tracked on purpose, trying to get it passed before counties had an opportunity to speak up or even know that it's going on. In fact, the majority of counties in Virginia have no knowledge of this. And not until the Hunting Dog Alliance took the position and started waving the flag and making phone calls were they even aware this was occurring. In the last 3 weeks, we have gone county to county, as I am here tonight, trying to rally support from the counties and giving the counties an opportunity to speak out. We don't believe, and in fact we know by facts, by our 2 polls and a questionnaire that we are in possession in, that rural citizens do not support Sunday hunting. This push is mostly supported by urban hunters and some suburban hunters, but very small percentage of rural hunters. 2 years ago, they being the Sunday Hunting Coalition, and I urge you to write that down and search that on the web yourself. You will want to see that, Sunday Hunting Coalition. When you go there, you'll see this is a formulation of large businesses. In the NRA, United States Shooting Sports, Cabela's, Bass Pro, Quality Deer Management, Safari Club. These groups of people put up $2 million 2 years ago in lobbyist fees trying to get Sunday hunting passed. We fought them tooth and nail, and we won. We thought the war was over, but lo and behold, they come back this year. And again, hundreds of thousands of dollars in lobbying fees are put out there trying to push this through. It seems like it's going to happen. One bill, House Bill 1237, has already passed through the House, and on crossover, it will go over to the Senate for ratification. At the same time, Senate Bill 154 was passed by the Senate, and it will go crossover and go back to the House. Now, as in the last 3 weeks, as we've gone county to county, we've had 21 counties step up and support us in adopting a Sunday hunting resolution, which we sent Mr. Cully, and I hope that y'all have possession of. This Sunday hunting resolution is a statement by each county stating that they adamantly oppose lifting a ban on Sunday hunting. What we're asking is, as we accumulate these counties, we have, trying to think of the right political word, we have people that have told us that if we could gain enough support, that our chances would be strong in amending the bill when it came back to the House. To amend that bill, we're asking that they amend it to put a clause in there to say that counties will have the option to opt out. Presently, neither bill has that provision. Again, we're asking for Caroline County to fall in with their brothers counties and vote this in and pass the resolution to be one of the many to stand up and oppose this. At least, if down the road you decide to have Sunday hunting, you'll have the option to make that decision yourself. Somebody won't make it for you. So, I would like to say that I was present at the General Assembly when Delegate Orrock spoke out against Sunday hunting. I would ask, seeing he's your representative, that you call him and congratulate him on the position he took. He gave an excellent speech and stood well for y'all. He made a good representation, and I give him credit for that. But we also need you to call him and ask him to support an amendment to put the addition in there, that the option will be available for the counties. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I'm Charles Tillapa. I'm with Western Caroline. Is that right? Western Caroline. But I live in Western Carolina. I come tonight as the pastor of Wright's Chapel, which I think is in Madison, in the Madison district. I come merely to say thank you to this board for their support of the Wright's Chapel Polar Bear Plunge at Lake Landor. The event was a huge success in our minds, with money still rolling in, totaling nearly $20,000 that was raised, that will go back into the community of Caroline for those who are the most economically vulnerable among us. The $1,000, which the board approved, in Mr. Department, was sent to the Department of Social Services so that they can use that for assistance. Especially want to thank Mr. Black for his willingness to go in on the plunge on the first Saturday in February and to get cold so that others would stay warm. And so we thank you for your support of that. We have a plaque that we do for any of the major sponsors. I'll give that to Mr. Parton so that he'll be able to go in next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'm glad you gave it to him and not me. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening, Linwood Broadus, Mattaponi District. I just wanted to say I'd like to thank Mr. Hackett for what he said. The Farm Bureau has been putting a lot of effort to prevent this legislation on Sunday hunting. If y'all would send a letter in support, that would be great. I'd just also like to add to it that Caroline is a very special county. We have 3 delegates that represent us, Oric, Ranson, and Fowler. So let them know. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Bras. Is there anyone else? Mr. Hackett left?
He's right here in front. Right here, 3rd row from the front, left side.
Dang, gone. Okay. All right, I'm going to go to the car and get my glasses. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of public comment? Anyone else? Okay, we'll declare public comment closed. Let's see, with respect to Mr. Chenault's ambulance bill, we basically, the county has a policy where we have a service that tracks the ambulance fees that are charged and bills your insurance. If your insurance doesn't pay at all, the county doesn't pursue it any further. So I'm not sure if yours is a co-payment issue, but if it's something that's due to the county, we pretty much take whatever the insurance gets as far as that program is concerned. So I'm going to ask you if you've got a question. Chief Loftus or one of your designees can work with Mr. Chenault to make sure he understands the process there, and he shouldn't have any extra liability unless his insurance company is asking for something. Ms. Burke, Mr. Taylor mentioned at the start of the meeting about a biosolids application. So he definitely did what he was supposed to do for you. As you may not know, but the county voted against biosolids applications several years ago, and we basically had a county ban. And unfortunately, the General Assembly decided that it was something the General Assembly should take over, and it's permitted all by the General Assembly. The county has basically no control over it. Probably the reason why you're not seeing any more updates is because it's passed in most places and they're not doing a lot more research. I fell in line with the original research and I voted against it. So we're, I guess Mr. Taylor mentioned it, and he's going to probably work to get enough people there. If there's anything we can do from the county perspective, you know, we'll be happy to do it.
Right. As the chairman has said, I do plan to be at the meeting if it is tomorrow night and weather permitting, if not, whenever they have it. And I will come out and voice the concerns of the citizens. But really beyond that, I don't have any real authority to stop it. Hopefully, if we go out and citizens speak up, they have to have this type of meeting. So there has to be a purpose for it. So if we get enough people there, hopefully we can convince them that it's not in our best interest to do it, at least on that side. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Anderson spoke about the budget. Ms. Lambert, you talked about racing. We did have a ruling from the planning department. Mr. Underwood spoke up in your behalf as the meeting started to ask us to look at it more. I don't have the schedule. Do you know when the first event is for these guys? This weekend? I guess there's probably nothing we could do to stop it, but we've got a ruling, so I guess we need to look at it a little further as a board, so we could see if the board consensus is that we're going to overrule the planning commission or the planning commission reading, then we'll have to go for that. But I think, I guess we can't then.
You don't have that authority, sir. Sorry. It would have to go to BZA.
So that's going to BZA. That would be the next step. All right.
Mr. Chairman, could we hear what the planning commission's view was as to why they?
It would be the zoning administrator, Mr. Taylor.
It should be in your packet on the table, on the agenda part.
That's it.
There's a ruling from
the zoning
the zoning administrator, zoning interpretation. It was sent to Mrs. Lambert. It's actual letter sent to Mrs. Lambert.
Okay, but I just received this tonight, so I haven't had time to look at it, but.
Yeah, they just wrote it yesterday.
Yeah, I was just curious, though, as to why is there a difference in the interpretation? She's saying it's a race, they're saying it's not a race.
The difference, the zoning administrator has determined that this particular event is a driving school and not racing. Fine line in the difference, but that's the interpretation that's been given. And now we basically, according to the attorney, have to go to the BZA to make a change, but I think we could clarify our ordinance a little bit more.
Well, it's my understanding it's a proffer.
Right.
So the interpretation under the by state code is made when a question comes up as to the interpretation of a proffer or a zoning question. The determination is made by the zoning administrator. He notifies the party who requests the determination, and an aggrieved party, which would be the person who doesn't agree with the interpretation and is affected by it, which would be, in this case, perhaps be a neighboring landowner, has 30 days to appeal it to the BZA. If the BZA makes a determination that either party disagree with, they can then appeal that to the circuit court.
But they're not 30 days, I'm sorry, Ben, didn't mean to cross you. But they're not 30 days available from the time that this was sent out, which was yesterday, and the event is this Saturday. There's not enough time to have an appeal put in place, and then again the $600 fee, which I think is.
She has to pay a fee to go to BZA.
Yeah, you've got to advertise. Actually, the BZA generally would have legal counsel. I mean, there is cost to it.
So this is not. I understand the process, but it's not availed to her or to any neighbor because the event is Friday, it's Saturday.
I don't have an answer for that. This is simply the legal process.
Right.
And you know, the determination, although it affects an event that is occurring quickly, the determination is not necessarily limited to that one event.
Understand.
It would apply if they had multiple educational events going forward. So there would be conceivably some benefit to going through the process later on.
Mr. Underwood, members of the board, I would also suggest to you that there may be a legislative way to address this issue as well. There are a number of different uses identified under the definition of fairground. In most cases, there are no standards that go with that list of uses. one option might be to clarify under those uses parameters related to that list of uses that are outlined. For example, you may want to say indoor educational programming versus educational programming. So that's something that we could also look at, if the board wants us to, and report back to the board at the next meeting in options that might be available to address that as well.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. How do we address situations like, I know Mrs. Lambert's upset about the motorized driving school, that I think that's how it's being portrayed into the information that's been given to us. What happens if some of the Question people want to have a training session with people with horses and things of that nature? So if we say it's inside, that eliminates that group of people.
There's actually a by right use in the planned recreation and entertainment district for equestrian.
But you just talked about making some changes when it comes to fairgrounds, and this is a fairground.
Right. It would be to change. It would be consideration of a modification to, for example, educational programming. There is a specific category for equine events that is not tied to the educational programming definition. Equine was a by right use, the fairground was a special exception use. So at the time, there was an effort to separate out equine activities from other types of activities that might occur at the fairground. I just throw that out as something that we can discuss with the board, potential legislative.
And I understand what you're saying. I just do not want to do anything that's going to hurt the definition of the fairground and what it's proposing, what it was proposed to do. That is a concern that I have. Now, maybe we can deal with motorized or something along those lines, but just to flat out say training sessions, I think is a bad mistake.
I guess, and I will just close my comments by, it seems like we have a process here, and we've used that process. And, and sometimes, unfortunately, everybody isn't going to be satisfied with the process. But that's the way it is. Now, if there's something wrong with what we're doing, if we're doing something inappropriate, then we need to look at that. But if we're not, it just might be one of those situations where everybody don't get what they want. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd like for everybody to get what they want, but it doesn't happen in the society that we live in. So we have a process that determines what we can do, and we've gone through that process, and that process has said this is okay. So whether we like it or not, that's kind of the way it is. And you can change it, but then somebody else is not going to like it. So, be that as it may, that's just kind of the way.
It's like your biosolids.
Well, I don't want to use that one.
Biosolids, but
I don't want to use that one.
The gentleman says, "Hey, it's there."
Okay.
But we're not talking about the process, Mr. Chairman. We have no issue with the process, but again, we can't take full advantage of the process because of the time factor.
Right.
So we don't have an issue with. So.
How long have we known about this?
We had some other personal issues during the process, so
right.
that was part of it. But I think
some personal issues.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
So I mean
that's my only concern.
Right, and as as fairness to all, we can ask Mr. Fincham to look at what he's proposing in certain senses, because we owe it to everybody to make sure the proffers are upheld. And if that's the case where they're not being upheld, we may miss this one, but we could catch the next one if that's the case. And then we'll work from there. But I think we could at least owe Mr. Underwood and the folks that are near there the courtesy of looking at it again to see if there's an issue. And that's all, and we could look at an issue. It will come to a board vote, I'm sure, And at that time, we'll go with what the majority of the board says. So we'll move with that. Mr. Hackett and Mr. Broadus are against Sunday hunting, as well as I think most of the board was against Sunday hunting. We had a very large meeting last month where we talked about hunting with rifles. After the meeting, most of those hunters came back and said, we want to stop Sunday hunting too. So I have your resolution up on my screen, and I'm more than likely going to sign it in the morning, and we'll forward it to our 3 delegates. We're really lucky, and that's sarcasm, but we've got 3 delegates. So we'll forward that to them to make sure we'd like to line up with you as being opposed to Sunday hunting. And Reverend left. Anytime we can get a minister, it's really good because I need all the prayers I can get. I think that's it. All right, we've taken care of the public comment. Public hearing. Proposed amendment of Chapter 10, Code of Caroline County, to change the name of Caroline County Industrial Development Authority to Caroline County Economic Development Authority. Mr. Wilson is going to give us the make the presentation.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of the board, this is your public hearing for the proposed amendment to Chapter 10 to change the name of the Industrial Development Authority to the Economic Development Authority. In brief, the name is considered too indescriptive by the board of the authority. They would like the name economic to reflect, which reflects their broader interests and activities. Tonight we have Mr. Andy Andrews and Mr. Craig Lewis from the authority showing their support for this change, and we are able to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. At this time, does board members have any questions of Mr. Wilson? There are no questions. We will open the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We will declare the public hearing to be open on the proposed change to Chapter 10 of the Code of Caroline. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Board members at this time have any questions again of Mr. Wilson or anyone else? If there are no questions, a motion would be in order. Motion's in order.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the ordinance change from the Industrial Development Authority to the Economic Development Authority.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Akers. For the approval of the name change, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Wilson.
you, sir. The Economic Development Authority. Thanks, sir.
He was right on that right away. All right, number 5 is the proposed agreement between the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries. He's behind you, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have in your packet basically an update on the entire discussion of the proposed boat landing at Milford. As the board is aware, Mattaponi Wildlife Management Area under the auspices of DGIF is establishing a boat landing at the wildlife management area and came to the county some months back requesting the use of board property in Milford for a non-motorized boat landing as well. The board tentatively agreed to the boat landing, and the minutes from the previous board meetings are included in your packet for your review. You do have a draft agreement that has been reviewed by DGIF and the county attorney's office. You will note that we tried to include some language in there about maintenance and things like that, but the Attorney General's office had some concerns